Hey boys and girls, it's Miss Laura. I'm going to read you a story today. It's A Garden for a Groundhog. Being our theme is how to grow a garden. And parents, it's a little long, so you have some time if you want to put this in front of your kids and jump in the shower or start dinner. The O'Learys had a bit of a farm. A tiny cottage for the two of them and their cat, a tiny shed for the goat, the lamb, and the two chickens, and a tidy little garden with an apple tree. It wasn't much of a farm, but it was enough, and it belonged to them. There was also a groundhog. He didn't belong to anyone, just himself. He lived in a burrow under the apple tree. This is a burrow. And there's the groundhog. Mrs. O'Leary spent the winter spinning and knitting and cooking delicious meals from the food they had grown in the garden from the summer before. They ate zucchini squash soup with egg dumplings, zucchini bread with goat cheese and pickled beets, zucchini casserole with potatoes, peas, and beans, zucchini salad with yogurt, cabbage, and tomatoes, and zucchini carrot cake. Sure did eat a lot of zucchini. Mr. O'Leary spent the winter reading seed catalogs and repairing the garden tools. The cat spent the winter curled up by the wood stove or stretched out on the sunny windowsill. That's what cats are supposed to do. The goat, the lamb, and the chicken spent the winter giving milk, growing wool, and laying eggs. That's what goats, lambs, and chickens are supposed to do. The groundhog spent the winter hibernating in his burrow. That's what groundhogs are supposed to do. Turn it a little bit. Okay. Along about February, everyone began feeling restless. Mrs. O'Leary had used up all the wool. Mr. O'Leary had ordered the garden seeds. The cat dreamed of chasing mice in the fields. The goat, the lamb, and the chickens longed to kick up their heels in the grass. The groundhog was feeling twinges of hunger. He hadn't eaten anything all winter. He's not supposed to. That's what hibernating is. Tomorrow is Groundhog Day, said Mr. O'Leary. We must watch for him in the morning. If he comes out and sees his shadow, it will frighten him, and he'll go back to bed. That will mean 6 more weeks of winter. If he doesn't see his shadow, he will stay awake. Then spring will be early, and we can plant our garden sooner. Such foolishness. When that groundhog comes out of his hole, it's only going to see if we have planted anything yet. After all of our hard work, he ate more from our garden last summer than we did, said Mrs. O'Leary. That's what groundhogs are supposed to do, my dear. They eat all summer so that they sleep all winter. We must allow some food in exchange for his help in forecasting the weather. I have a plan that will ensure that he eats only what we want him to eat this summer, said Mr. O'Leary. Groundhog Day found Mr. and Mrs. O'Leary watching and waiting under the apple tree. The groundhog stirred himself and waddled out into the sunshine to see if the O'Leary's garden was planted yet. When he realized it wasn't, he tottered back to bed, just as he was supposed to. The winter continued, and everyone waited. Eventually, spring arrived. just the way it was supposed to. Mr. and Mrs. O'Leary planted their garden. The cat chased mice, the goat, the lamb, and the chickens kicked up their heels in the grass. The groundhog nibbled alfalfa and dandelions, waiting. You see here, she's working in the garden, and Mr. O'Leary is actually shearing the sheep. Mr. and Mrs. O'Leary weeded, watered, hoed, and fussed. That's what gardeners are supposed to do. See all their stuff in their garden? Sorry. The garden grew just as it was supposed to, and it was beautiful. There were plump red tomatoes, sweet, juicy melons, tender peas and beans, crisp carrots, big, round cabbages, onions, potatoes, beets, and berries, all for the O'Learys. Oh. The zucchini squash was for the groundhog. And they even put a sign up here that says Groundhog Zucchini. Oops. But the groundhog can't read. They're not supposed to. Is that funny? So it looks like he's eating a lot more than just the zucchini, because I see some carrots and tomatoes and cabbage. The end. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I know you heard my dog barking in the background. There he is. Apollo. Apollo. Yeah, he's not the smartest. So tomorrow I have a really big surprise. I get to go to a garden at a local school. And I have a very good friend, Miss Irma, that volunteers at the school and plants the seeds and different things like that at the garden. And she's going to let me take a video of her, and she's going to explain how to make a garden, how to turn up the soil and plant the seeds and what you need to do to keep it growing and strong. And there's also one other thing at this garden. They have some type of, say, like cage with some animals in it. These animals lay eggs. What do you think it is? Shh. You'll find out tomorrow. Mwah. Love and miss you all. Bye.